One decision. That is all it took to turn the biggest match of the entire World Cup into a court case the whole planet is arguing about right now. France against Spain. A semifinal. Bastille Day in Dallas. And by the time the final whistle went, nobody was talking about the football anymore. They were talking about a screen, a referee's earpiece, and a line that either was or was not drawn across the correct blade of grass. This is the biggest VAR row of the entire tournament. Bigger than the Belgium handball. Bigger than the Argentina cruise scandal. And if you think this was just another one of those 50-50 calls that fans complain about and forget by Thursday, you have no idea what was already happening behind that referee's earpiece in the 74th minute. Let's set the scene, because you cannot understand the reaction without understanding the stakes. AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas, 94,000 in the ground, and, according to the tournament broadcasters, close to 900 million watching around the world. France, 6 wins from 6, the tournament's most complete side, arriving with Kylian Mbappe sitting 1 goal behind Lionel Messi's all-time World Cup record. Spain, on a 37-match unbeaten run, having just equaled Italy's all-time mark in the quarterfinal. 2 heavyweight sides, 1 final on the line, and the score locked at 1-1 with 16 minutes left when the moment happened. A Spanish counter, 3 passes, a ball rolled across the edge of the French box, and Lamine Yamal, the teenager the entire nation of Spain has been waiting 5 games to see catch fire, sliding it low into the bottom corner. Bedlam, the Spanish bench, emptied. Yamal was on the touchline pointing at the crest on his shirt. Luis de la Fuente was on his knees. And on the far side of the pitch, referee Facundo Tello, one of the most experienced officials at the tournament, had his hand pressed to his earpiece. He was not smiling. The line never came. Or rather, the line did come. And it was one of the strangest lines drawn on a football pitch in the history of the video assistant referee. Now, on the surface, this looks straightforward. Offside is offside. If a toe is beyond the last defender, the goal is off, and every fan on earth has watched enough of these to know the drill. But the second you look behind the curtain at what actually happened during that 4-minute check, the picture completely changes. Start with the delay itself. 4 minutes and 11 seconds from the moment the ball hit the net to the moment Tello raised his arm to confirm the disallowance. 4 minutes and 11 seconds passed. That is not a VAR check. That is a small trial, and in a tournament that has been under a microscope since the group stage for the length and inconsistency of its VAR interventions. 4 minutes on a single goal line offside call was always going to invite questions. But it is not the length that has broken the internet. It is what came out of the VAR truck. Because when FIFA's semi-automated offside technology, the same system that has been used at every match of this World Cup, produced its 3D image of the incident, the image showed something that did not match the decision. Multiple broadcasters, including the tournament's own host feed, aired an angle in which Yamal's trailing foot appeared to be level with, or fractionally behind, the second-last French defender, Dayot Upamecano. Level, in offside law, means onside. And here is where it gets ugly. Because the graphic that was eventually broadcast on the stadium screens, the graphic that FIFA's own communications team pushed out on social media within an hour of the final whistle, was drawn from a different camera angle entirely. A tighter one, a more oblique one, an angle that former Premier League referee Mark Clattenburg, sitting on the BBC panel within minutes of full time, described, and I am quoting him, as an angle you would use if you had already decided the outcome and were looking for a picture to support it. Sit with that. A former elite official saying on live television that FIFA's evidence looked reverse-engineered from a conclusion. That was not a fan on Twitter. That was a man who has refereed a Champions League final. And then there is the detail that really tells you how far this had already gone. The line drawn on the FIFA graphic. Look at it. Not diagonal. Not curved to account for the position of the camera. A perfectly straight vertical line dropped across the pitch. Any second-year student of the offside law will tell you that the calibration lines used by semi-automated systems have to be drawn perpendicular to the goal line, not perpendicular to the camera. The line on the FIFA graphic was drawn perpendicular to the camera, which means the mathematics behind the decision, at least as presented to the public, was, in the polite words of one Sky Sports analyst, not what you would call watertight. One line, one angle, one graphic. and a Spanish goal in a World Cup semi-final wiped off the board. Now let me be fair for a second, because this channel does not deal in fantasy. It is entirely possible that Facundo Tello and his VAR team, sitting in that truck in Dallas, had access to a fourth or fifth camera angle that has not yet been made public and that clearly and definitively showed Yamal offside by the width of a boot stud. FIFA has done exactly this before. Access to broadcaster feeds and to their own internal replay system is not always in perfect sync with what viewers at home see. It is possible the call was correct and the graphic was simply badly presented. It is possible. But that is exactly what makes it a nightmare instead of a footnote. Because if the call was correct, FIFA has now spent 72 hours in the middle of the biggest match of the tournament unable, or unwilling, to release the angle that would settle it. 72 hours of Spanish Federation officials on national television questioning the integrity of the officiating. 72 hours of former players from a dozen nations queuing up on podcasts and panels to say the emperor has no clothes. 72 hours in which the credibility of the video assistant referee, an innovation that was supposed to end exactly this kind of argument, has been shredded on a stage watched by hundreds of millions of people. Now put this call in context, because this is where it moves from a bad night in Dallas to a full-blown institutional crisis. FIFA has confirmed that the number of goals disallowed by VAR at this World Cup is a factor of 10 or more compared with equivalent stages at the 2022 tournament in Qatar. A factor of 10. That is not a refinement of the process. That is a different process entirely. Egypt filed a formal complaint against the referees in the group stage. An all-Argentine officiating crew was appointed to an Argentina quarterfinal. In the same week Egypt's complaint was made public. Leaked audio from the Belgium quarterfinal is still being examined by 3 separate broadcasters. And now this. Brick after brick after brick. Think about that. Think about what it means that in a tournament that was supposed to be the technological showpiece of modern football, the running joke among fans on 4 continents is that you do not know if a goal counts until the referee has finished consulting the tablet, the earpiece, the graphic, and possibly a lawyer. And here is the part that makes this particular decision hurt for Spain in a way the other rows have not hurt anyone else. Because that disallowed goal was, statistically, Lamine Yamal's tournament coming to life. His expected goals across the previous 4 matches had been sitting at 1.54, and he had scored exactly once, in the group stage against Saudi Arabia. 5 weeks of criticism, 5 weeks of pundits questioning whether the 18-year-old was the star of the future or the most overhyped teenager in the sport. And in the 74th minute of a World Cup semi-final on the biggest stage football has, he produced the finish that would have answered every question in a single motion. And it was taken back by a line drawn from a camera angle a former referee said looked pre-selected. France went on to win the tie 2-1 in extra time. Mbappe, of course. His 21st career World Cup goal, level with Messi's all-time record. The Frenchman took his shirt off, was booked for it, and did not seem to care. Because he was going to a World Cup final. His 3rd in a row. A generational achievement, and one that in any other tournament would be the only story anyone was writing tonight. But nobody is writing about Mbappe. Nobody is writing about Ousmane Dembél's assist. Nobody is writing about a French side that has now won all 7 of its matches and scored 16 goals in the process. They are writing about a Spanish teenager, a graphic, and a line drawn in the wrong direction. The problem for FIFA is that the final on Sunday is now poisoned before it is kicked off. France against either Argentina or Morocco, depending on the second semi-final, in a match that hundreds of millions of neutrals will be watching not for the football, but for the officiating. Every VAR check will be timed. Every graphic will be screenshotted. Every angle will be dissected. The final of the biggest tournament in world sport is going to be viewed by a significant slice of its own audience as a piece of theater in which the outcome may or may not have been influenced by the men in the truck. That is not a football problem. That is an institutional collapse of trust, playing out on live television in real time. And do not think for a second that this is going to fade. The Spanish Federation has already confirmed, in a statement released within 4 hours of the final whistle, that it intends to formally request the full unedited footage of the VAR check from FIFA. The president of the federation, Rafael Luzin, used the phrase, and I am quoting him, A decision that requires immediate and complete transparency, not a public relations graphic. When your losing federation is publicly accusing the sport's world governing body of running a PR operation in the middle of a semi-final, the relationship is already dead. Read that carefully because it is extraordinary. A member federation of FIFA in the middle of a World Cup has effectively told FIFA that it does not trust FIFA's own evidence. That is not a fan complaint. That is not a pundit's take. That is a formal, institutional accusation from one of the biggest football nations on earth. And the response from FIFA so far has been a single line on their communications channel confirming that the decision was, in their words, reviewed thoroughly and confirmed by the video assistant referee in accordance with the laws of the game. No angle released. No time-stamped footage published. No press conference offered. Just the sentence. Brick after brick after brick. Because here is the thesis, and it is the same one this channel has been laying out for 6 weeks. This is not really about whether Lamine Yamal was 2 centimeters offside, or 2 centimeters onside. This is about an institution that has spent an entire tournament forfeiting the benefit of the doubt on every close call, by refusing to be transparent about the process behind any of them. When you have spent 5 weeks as the villain in every officiating row of your own competition, you do not get to suddenly play the trustworthy narrator in the biggest match of the tournament. You have used up the trust. You are running on empty. And every close call from here to the final whistle on Sunday is going to be filed by half the watching planet under the same word. Rigged. Whether it is true or not. So, what do you think? Was Lamine Yamal's goal the correct call by a VAR team doing its job under impossible pressure? Or was it the moment FIFA's credibility finally cracked in half on the biggest stage the sport has? Drop your verdict in the comments. Tell me which side of that argument you are on and tell me why. Because the debate on this one is going to run for years. Hit subscribe if you have not already. Because we are 5 weeks into this World Cup, and it is already producing the most contested officiating in the tournament's history, and there is still a final to come. Trust me, this will not be the last one. The line never came the way anyone wanted it to. And by now, nobody is surprised. I'll see you in the next one.